All right, guys, so I just got back from the second ever Chosen. Literally just got off the plane last night back into the United States. It was definitely quite a bit of fun. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the tournament. And, on that note, if there's any kind of suggestions or changes you guys would like to see regarding the structure of the tournament, please leave them in the comment section below. On that note, I'm also going to be getting back into streaming, so there's going to be best of threes. And, there's another format I think I want to have on the channel a little bit more regularly. I think we're going to just have like 4-man tournament. So the Ever Chosen was obviously an 8-man tournament with best of threes and a best of 5 finals. But I think I'm going to start having like mini flash tournaments on like Saturdays and Sundays and things like that. Maybe even try and have it like every weekend. It's just so much fun casting that format. It's very engaging, and I think it really gives a good highlight to the competitive community. So we're going to be getting back to the multiplayer streams. I've had a bit of a change in my living situation, so we got more space now, and also the heat wave is dying down a little bit. So there's going to be some good times coming here. But as far as this game goes, I'm going to be playing the Empire led by Boris Toadbringer back here. My opponent's going to be playing the Wood Elves, and he does, I think, have a Glady on the Great Eagle. So that's going to give him the Prey of an Othrama, some good snare abilities, and yeah, definitely looking to be a pretty feisty game here. So against the Wood Elves, I always like to bring like cheap artillery, so like mortars, and I do have the Hammer of the Witches up here, which is actually a little bit expensive, but I really like to bring artillery and mortars and stuff like that force the Wood Elves in. My opponent actually has a really good counter. So you can see up here in the front line, he does have Deepwood Scouts, and I can't see them coming. They have stock, so he's going to creep up and get some pretty good shots off here on my mortars. Probably be able to take them out relatively quickly. Yeah, you can see the little tooltip there. It says they're hidden, and now they're firing in. So they're going to be firing in on my 2 mortars. As far as my infantry goes, it's going to be spearmen with shields. I think it's just pretty much all spearmen. 1 group of greatswords just to kind of keep my opponent's infantry honest. And yeah, that's it for my main line here. Do have witch hunters down there, up on the high ground. This is where the magic happens. So up here you can see my REIKSGUARD. 2 groups of REIKSGUARD. One of them going to be Xantlers. One of them is going to be standard. Each is going to be riding with hero. So they're going to just be charging into these guys, and I netted them down. So it's just going to be devastating damage. These Glade Riders with Hagwing tips, definitely not meant for fighting like heavy shock cap here. So we get a really good engagement there. Right out of the gates, we're able to pick off those Glade Riders with our Light Wizard, and I think Light Wizards are something else that's pretty much a staple against Wood Elves because it's so good at like snaring down their kiting units. But the mainline fight's going really bad. My opponent's Deepwood Scout strategy paying off heavily. He's able to just melt my mortars, both of them just retreating, so those guys are done for. Over here in the front, he is charging in with the Wild Riders. I was braced here and do catch a couple of those guys, but it looks like he's trying to go after my Witch Hunter. So you can see that his Pigeon right here, the Glady, I mean, she's not the best in melee, but she does pretty good damage against a Witch Hunter who's relatively squishy with what's his melee defense? Actually 34, so that's kind of like mid-range. But anyways, my Witch Hunter really taking quite a pounding here. I am going to be sending in my Spearmen with shields to kind of support, and the rest of my line is going to be advancing, trying to push back those Deepwood Scouts. So it went very well. We've traded, tit for tat for the most part. I lost my 2 mortars. My opponent lost those 2 Glade Riders. I'm going to be pulling around, and the Hammer of the Witches is now going to start shooting at my opponent's Lord. So not wanting to take this engagement until my Cav could get in position, because you can see I have a very long pull around here. I decided to pull back. So my Spearmen are falling back. Everyone's falling back a little bit. The Greatswords a little bit caught up here, but they, do cut down a couple of those Wild Riders, which is fine. And then they're just going to be engaging into these Eternal Guard here. So one group of my Spearmen suffered a pretty unfortunate fate. They did advance a little aggressively, but you can see I'm forming a bit of a second battle line here, trying to waste his ammunition. My opponent does a really good job. He gets the low X-Trixers here, kind of just screens me out, so I can't really get my Deepwood Scouts, and that's why I decided to get all my troops and ride back and around, because he could simply put like, some spear units here, and I wouldn't be able to get through very easily. So right now he's charging in with his Cav right here. Very good charge for my opponent, just lancing into the Greatswords, taking advantage of the charge bonus of the Wild Riders. These guys are pretty beastly. They're not good versus like the heavy Cav of the Empire because their armor piercing's a little bit low, but against my state troops and even Greatswords, they're doing pretty well. Witch Hunter's going to be falling back. I didn't want to get sniped out, and I wanted to get another accusation off him, and if my opponent does come in here, I wanted to at least have some troops to kind of protect the Witch Hunter. So very even battle right now. Balance of power maybe in my opponent's favor a little bit, but the Greatswords are going to be charging in to intercept these Eternal Guard, and this is a very good engagement for the Greatswords. Eternal Guard do have okay AP, but of course their bonus versus infantry really going to shine here. But yeah, looking to be a pretty wild fight. And something else I wanted to kind of highlight in this game is don't be afraid to charge your Cav into spears. If the spears are engaged with other units, or if they're not braced, you're going to get some pretty good value, especially against Wood Elf spears, because 40 armor on those guys. Low X-Trixers, for example, the ROR of the Azurai spears only have 15 armor, so you can still get, pretty good value charging. So here it comes. These guys weren't braced. It looks like my opponent does countercharge, but man, they just get punted into another dimension right there. Definitely good stuff. And look at the HP damage. I mean, that's not bad. Same thing going off here in the middle. We have the Ziltner's REIKSGUARD led by the mighty Toadmaster himself. They're going to be charging in. Well, I feel like we need to have like a showdown between him and Mazda Money to see who the king of the Toads are. But we get a good engagement. So what I wanted to do was kind of like press his front line a little bit and then swoop up and around, use this opening, overwhelm his Wild Riders, which are the only defenses he has over here. And then that will essentially open the floodgates to the back line up here. A little bit sloppy with my Pistoliers. I pulled them back too far. I thought about going up and around, but I think I changed my mind like 3 or 4 times. Anyways, he does get a Prey of an Othram right here on my Zentler's REIKSGUARD. Very good stuff, but the Gladelord does get caught with an Accusation and a Nets of Amnitok, and that means that Hammer the Witches is going to be getting some pretty good kind of straight shots right here. As far as the HP of this Gladelord goes, it looks like he only has like 900. Yeah, so he's just getting pounded. So right here we get a really good charge. The REIKSGUARD coming up and around, and it looks like, oh man, I thought, yeah, for some reason I thought that was another point in the game, but I thought we ran those guys over. But my opponent does fall back, so very well played to him. He does also get a Melkoth's Mystifying Miasma, so his micro has just been on point so far. Slowing these guys down, potentially allowing the Eternal Guard and Spears to catch up, but I think I'm going to get up and around the bend and potentially get into the back line. So the D-Put Scouts are shooting into my Caster as well as the REIKSGUARD. Thankfully, these guys do have the Bronze Shield, which is going to be pretty useful, and D-Put Scouts don't have the best AP, so the 120 armor here is really going to come into effect. A couple of them are getting caught in the Last Samurai situation. In the meantime, my Pistoliers are putting some pressure on the Azurai Spears, but it's a very dangerous situation because these D-Put Scouts can simply just rain in Overwatch, 180 range, easily able to outmatch the 80 range of my Pistoliers. So the REIKSGUARD are coming in. They do have the Light Wizard as well, but these guys can fire while shooting, so it's going to make it a little bit tougher. Thankfully, they don't have any way to like slow me down here. And the other group of REIKSGUARD, I think it was the Zentlers. Yeah, I use the Barona's Time Warp, and I get a big timing push. I'm like, I have Spearmen here, I have Greatswords here. Let's get Boris in here and see if we can crack this formation. So we charge in, and you can see a couple of those Wild Riders really just getting destroyed right there. So yeah, we actually break the Wood Elf line to an extent, but there's still these Eternal Guard and also the low Extrictors. So I have to pull out there. I don't want any of that funny business. In the back, I'm able to catch up with some of these D-Put Scouts, and we should be able to clean them up. They don't have a ton of ammunition, but still I don't want them raining fire on anything because D-Put Scouts are a pretty powerful missile unit. So we clean those guys up. We're going to be rotating over here, but that's the thing about Wood Elves. The Eternal Guard, not Eternal Guard, but the Azurai Spears are, surprisingly quick. 58 speed is pretty insane. I don't think that's their base. They have an ability. I think those went the Shroud of Loic or something like that. Loic Shroud, 24%. So we're going to be crashing over here. The REIKSGUARD definitely pretty good against Wood Elves. They can overwhelm Wild Riders and also pretty good at chasing down these missile units. We get a decent little charge here, and these D-Put Scouts going to be taking out a couple models, but they don't have too much ammunition, like I said, so it's not like the best. I wish I had gotten them earlier in the game because they were able to pretty much use their entire volley, but my opponent did have these Azurai Spears who is kind of screening my Pistoliers out with, and he's going to be actually chasing me off. So I have to pull back right here. Still, I would say we netted some okay value. The infantry fight's pretty close over here. We have some great swords as well as some of these Spearmen of Sigmar. A very, very kind of a bitter fight here. So let's see, the Eternal Guard have 26. Oh, they're not the shielded variant, so I was wondering why their melee defense was so low, but 26, 36, and 24 compared to 20, 42, and 25. So relatively even. These Spearmen with shields actually have a much higher melee defense, which is pretty cool because these aren't the shielded variant, obviously. But yeah, definitely a bit of a wet noodle contest going on here. The Greatsword's giving me a little bit of punch, up to 94 kills. Definitely can't complain about that. In the meantime, my opponent chasing off my Zentler's REIKSGUARD. He's just been all over the place with these low Extrictors. Those guys getting that speed buff is definitely very nice, and he's able to kind of chase me away. So these REIKSGUARD having to retreat right here. These War Dancers, hot in pursuit, but something I forgot is, like, after I was able to kill my opponent's Lord with the Accusation as well as the Hammer of the Witches, it kept getting line of sight blocked up here. You can see, like, I don't really have a great line of sight. I kept trying to shoot, but every time it kept moving. It was very inefficient. What I should have done earlier in the game is actually, like, scoot it down here so I could get a good volley. But down here, it's kind of a bit of a Benny Hill theme going on. My opponent just chasing me, getting a very good Earthblood on the Azurai Spears. But the Wild Rider is going to be intercepted by some of these Spearmen, which is great because these 50 Spearmen are now going to muck up these Azurai Spears, which, may potentially allow me to go up and around the flank and, get into the cookie jar back here. So we're going for those goodies. Boris Todbringer in very, very good health. Definitely going to be able to take out this Branch Wraith if he wants to. This is a little bit of a tough situation. So the Witch Hunter is being hunted down by the Loic Strictures, but the Hammer of the Witch is just unleashing a powerful volley there on those Loics and doing some good damage. And I also do get into the back line. So the Deepwood Scout's just getting pounded over here by these REIKSGUARD. I only have 19 models as well as 16, so a little bit low. And 57 Deepwood Scouts, I mean, they're not the best in melee, but they're also not pushovers. They do have combat stats in the 20s. My Light Wizard is going to be dropping Net of Amnitok on the Loic Strictures, which is going to give me more time to kind of work on this back line. So my Light Wizard's in okay shape. I think that's pretty much it for Winds of Magic. That was kind of my last gusto right there. Let's lock down these Loic Strictures, buy some time for me to run over the back line. Bounce of Power is relatively even, but a little bit in my favor there as the Hammer of the Witches keeps kind of unloading into his troops, and I think I do start scooting it onto the low ground here in a moment. At least it was firing, but it certainly would have been more efficient had I gotten it down here, because man, I missed out on so many volleys. So I tried to get a little bit of a gooning going on. Boris Todbringer, the Light Wizard, go after the Branch Wraith, but those Loic Strictures just really, really fast and always pressuring my Cav. Like, those Loic Strictures could probably solo, like, all of these guys and maybe even bring Boris down, like, if I stood and fought. So I need to run. I need to stick and move. I need to wear my opponent down and kind of regroup my spears and, other units here in the back. But the Hammer of the Witch is still delivering some good fire. The Pistoliers do kind of squeak through the gap, and I do have 22 models, and a couple of them, yeah, that poor lad right there got picked off. But they should be able to apply some decent pressure against these guys. So So my opponent's probably going to blob up his forces now, I would imagine, and try and get off an Earthblood. And at this point, I was like, okay, I need to get these spears, because I still have a full group of 90 spears, which trade very well with high elf infantry, all of whom have low armor. I mean, just through the attrition game, they can do pretty well. So the Hammer of the Witches is going to be moving. You can see I have given it the move order. These guys are going to be pushing these heavy cannons. I'm sure those things weigh a ton. Pushing him down to the low ground and starting to shoot at his forces here. And he is blobbing up, and it's definitely a good choice because he's just trying to get an Earthblood. So at this point, it's a bit of a standoff. We're both just kind of getting our forces intact. The Pistoliers and the Witch Hunter shooting into the blob here. My REIKSGUARD are going to be falling back, and yeah, these REIKSGUARD are just, they're probably one of my favorite cap units in the game. They're just so damn cool. 91 kills here, 105 on these guys. These guys may be looking for promotion, trying to do, outdo the Zintler's REIKSGUARD here. Witch Hunter's just kind of sitting and shooting here. I was hoping my opponent would charge so I could then countercharge him with the REIKSGUARD. But he's definitely going to need to, play it pretty safe here because his army is, he does have quite a bit with that Earthblood. You guys will probably see it might even trigger the bounce of power back towards the middle a little bit, but this is spell some danger for him. The Hammer of the Witches is back online, so he's forced forward. He can't afford to sit back, and it looks like right here he is going to pop a Melkoth's Mystifying Miasma right here, which is going to slow him down, but my REIKSGUARD aren't going to have any of that. So the Pistolier just 360 no-scoping, or the Witch Hunter, that one guy, and here comes the charge of the REIKSGUARD in the front, just destroying those guys, knocking them back, doing some very, very good damage. And the other group looks like they were thinking about going in balls deep there, but I think they saw the risk of it. So Hammer of the Witches shooting in, picking off some more of those Eternal Guard. I think I had it shooting at the Branch Wraith, although I should have had it on these Wild Riders, because 9 Wild Riders are still pretty dangerous. They do catch the Witch Hunter, and at that point I'm like, I'm not going to lose this hero for free. He's very good. He still has a decent amount of ammunition. I'm going to be getting a charge here in the flank. They all kind of swarm in here. He wasn't about face, so my REIKSGUARD get a really, really huge charge, just pin in a ton of those squishy Wood Elves, and I also do use the Foz protection on my Spearmen. That was my last Winds of Magic, so they do get some armor and melee defense, which is going to help out. And I just pull back here, and I think I have a pretty clear-cut advantage. He does have spears and all of that, but his army is so tattered, so beat up that any sort of tactic where I can pin them against my spears. So the Hammer and Anvil, the REIKSGUARD coming in to finish off these Wood Elves. Some of them are being sent over the formation, over the spears, which is great. But at that point, even the elite leadership of the Wood Elves, which is actually some of the highest in the game for their core troops, is probably going to start crumbling as the REIKSGUARD are able to shatter those Spearmen and everything. Boris Todbringer still in really good shape, so my opponent being leaderless obviously is a pretty important factor here as well. But what an incredibly well-played game. It was just back and forth. There was a couple times where when he sniped my mortars in the beginning, I was like, oh, that's 100% over. That was a really cool tactic because mortars and cannons and things like that are often used to pull the Wood Elves in, but if I hadn't got that pick on the high ground, so I got a really good net of Ammontok and was able to get those 2 Glade Riders. Had I not got those guys down, imagine them full health, just kiting my REIKSGUARD, applying poison, just being annoying. I think I would have maybe lost the game, or it would have been just even closer than it already was. So yeah, that catch in the beginning was very good, but I loved my opponent's tacticianship using those Deepwood Scouts to kind of take out my artillery. And had I had any sort of missiles myself, these guys would have just put them in a trash can. He also had some very good play, kind of screening me out. So my Cav in the very beginning had to ride all the way back around because I knew if I tried to overwhelm those War Dancers and other troops there in that valley, it would have been just an ugly fight. I would have lost a ton of troops. Maybe would have been able to defeat them, but it wouldn't have been pleasant. It would have really sucked. So yeah, I like the army composition quite a bit, though. I feel like Spearmen with shields are really good. They trade somewhat efficiently with Eternal Guard and most Wood Elf troops. One group of Greatswords proved to be pretty invaluable. Those guys put up a good fight. I don't think you want to go too heavy on them because you need mostly shields against what you see here, all these missiles and stuff. But yeah, the REIKSGUARD, pretty solid. They can beat heavy cav in general. So if you're playing Chaos or any faction with heavy cav, even Cold One Spear Riders or things like that, although Rampage and Cav are a little bit risky against Wood Elves because, Wood Elves have so many spears and they can rampage you easily with kiting and focus fire. So yeah, I don't know. Take that with a grain of salt. But again, the REIKSGUARD and heavy Cav can beat Wild Riders and then they can really get into the back line. But Azrai Spears, Prey of Anathrama, play and focus fire is also a pretty good counter to that. So definitely a very fun technical matchup for sure. So very well played to my opponent, Nirvana. Look forward to running into you again on ladder. And hopefully you guys enjoyed this Empire versus Wood Elf game. Have an excellent night, guys, and take care.